There is still hope, but I think that hope comes on the heels of peaceful, nonviolent protests.
Well, those are the words of Alton Yates there, a civil rights activist here from Jacksonville, and what happened 60 years ago. So it was 1960. Mr. Yates, one of the victims of the axe handle Saturday when young black men were sitting in at a cafeteria in various restaurants there at Hemming Park, now James Weldon Johnson Park. Some 200 middle-aged and even older white men armed with baseball bats and axe handles descended upon these young men and women demonstrating right now, just protesting for a bit of equality. That's 1960. And today we commemorate that as the fight for equality certainly continues. Let's take a live look right now at James Weldon Johnson Park, where things are happening. Formerly, of course, Hemming Park, where it all went down, where everything happened, and that's where protesters and demonstrators are reenacting that painful day. Again, protesting against racism, segregation, and discrimination in downtown Jacksonville. And so many people are still there and doing that very same thing right now. We do have team coverage for you this afternoon on the 60th anniversary of those sit-ins. Let's begin with Ken Amaro.
Hello, I'm standing right behind me. As you can see, there's some signage there. It's hard to imagine, but that is where the Woolworths department store as well as J.C. Penney's were located when this occurred. On August the 13th of 1963, about 85 young men, 16 years of age, went into the restaurant, sat at the lunch counter to begin their protest. Then they returned on August 27th of the same year, much smaller group, and that's when things exploded. On that day, they ran into a bunch of angry white segregationists who had axe handles and started beating them on their heads up and down downtown Jacksonville, if you will. So today they're pausing to remember what happened then. It's interesting that it's taking place in 2020 when there's a cry from the streets for social justice. So 60 years later, there's still a cry for social justice. Now, some say that there's no need for this. Even so, we've got a decent crowd here of folks who feel there is a need. I spoke to Mr. James Hardiman, who was here with his grandson, and this is his rebuttal to those who say there's no need.
Those that's saying that we don't need to do this here today probably aren't in our shoes.
And that's the feeling of many of the folks here. Again, the program is just getting started, starts at noon, and it goes until 2 o'clock. Now, I heard in the forecast that it's about 90 degrees, and I can tell you guys, I'm feeling every one of those 90 degrees. Let's go over to Alex Asitis. Alex.
And Ken, just on the other side of the park, seeing a lot more people as well, including those holding Black Lives Matter signs, wearing shirts, and showing their support. The president of the Youth Council 1960, Rodney Hurst, will take the podium this afternoon. He was walking up Adams Street and up to the park when he saw those men swinging axe handles and bats. Now, we spoke with Hurst earlier this week at length about that day 60 years ago, about sit-ins, about race relations, and about each day that there is still a fight against hate. Take a listen.
So when I wake up Thursday, we will commemorate the 60th anniversary of Axe Handle Saturday. But the next day, that Friday, August the 28th, is going to be another day. Like the 27th is another day. You are still fighting racism every day.
And events here are supposed to go until about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Things are going to be starting in just a moment. Of course, we'll have another update at 12:30. Reporting live downtown, Alex Asitis, First Coast News, on your side.
All right, Alex, thank you. And as they are there in James Weldon Johnson Park, speaking of the park, Representative Al Lawson introduced a bill to designate this park as part of the National Park Service's African American Civil Rights Network. Lawson said this designation would honor local foot soldiers who stood up for justice and who continue to fight for equality. I want you to stay with First Coast News. We are going to have continuous coverage of Axe Handle Saturday throughout the day here on firstcoastnews.com, and when you join us beginning at First Coast News at 5 o'clock as well.